I'm waiting for a meme that talks about the idea of, well, if you put pants on your head and pants on your bottom, then the virus will think that you're not a human and we'll just go right past you.
Welcome to PaleoCheeze Podcast, Episode 4, November, with special guest Josh Malerman.
All right, everybody. My name is Jeremiah Bannister.
And I am Chad Lutsky.
And you're listening to the PaleoCheeze Podcast, where we toss a film onto the old Cheese lounge to discuss it, to psychoanalyze it, and every once in a while to point and giggle at it. And today, man, we're going to be having a ton of fun because we have, as you can see, not only are we doing a special edition video edition of this podcast, but we have another face here, Chad.
Yes, Mr. Josh Malerman. Josh is the author of Bird Box, which has turned into a record-breaking Netflix original starring Sandra Bullock and John Malkovich, which he's the one I was most excited about in that one. His other books include On Barry Carroll, Black Mad Wheel, A House at the Bottom of a Lake, Goblin, On This Day, The Day of the Pig, Inspection, and this July 21st from Del Rey Books is Mallory, which is a sequel to Bird Box. So welcome, Josh. Thanks for hanging out, man.
Yeah, man. Right on.
You had mentioned a few times about coming over to your house and hanging out. And in some like strange, technological way, we're kind of doing that. Which is crazy during this time, with the plague and whatnot.
First of all, we don't live that far from each other. I mean, we would have to make a night of it, but it's not that far. But then it seems interesting that this is the time that we're coming together in our homes.
Yeah.
So we can't leave our homes.
But I did want to, now that I had you here and we're rolling, I wanted to congratulate you, man. I've kind of watched from afar for the past probably 4 years, which is when I first read Bird Box. And you've been a great inspiration to me as a writer, watching you be as prolific as you are, and just your your passion for things like we were talking earlier. You're just it's just the whole package of Josh Malerman, man. It's inspiring and encouraging. So it's good to get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah. Thank you. That's sometimes I think that's more important than someone even liking the book. Honestly, I think about like in terms of like, I guess, inspiring someone or whatever, I think about people used to say that about the Velvet Underground albums, that everyone that listened to a Velvet Underground album started a band. And I would love to one day, I don't know, occupy some variety of that role in horror fiction, at least for this era. If you read Bird Box or Carol or Carpenter's Farm, even if you read any of them, you were like, fuck, man, I can write a book too. I'm gonna write a book.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you've worked really hard and writing in for hours in a passenger seat of a van crammed with a bunch of sweaty dudes. It reminds me of like Henry Rollins in the Black Flag days, paying your dues.
We even listened to his audiobook, whatever, during that era when we were on there. Yeah, what was it? I can't remember. It's called Get in the Van. Or
Get in the Van, the Black Flag Diaries. Yeah.
Yeah. We listened to that when we were out on the road. Yeah, those days were insane because, like, I had yet to really, like, now I listen to pretty much straight up like horror soundtracks while writing. Mm-hmm. Back then, I wasn't in that groove yet. I was like working on my second book and then third, and I was in a van. And most of the time, what am I gonna do? Tell my bandmates, what music I need. We have to listen to Creep Show while we're driving to Salt Lake City or something, right? So like, but they would be listening to like Jerry Garcia, and you're like trying to like do like a scary scene, and it's like bam, and you're like, oh shit, man,
it's not working,
and it's not working. But then you were like, if you could pull that off, wow. If you can pull off a legit scary scene while the Grateful Dead are singing weird harmonies, and then you're made of something, I think.
Speaking of horror soundtracks, in the pre-show, right? We're all in the little studio here on StreamYard, and we got talking, and we decided you showed us something, and we want you to show the people who are watching this because it's amazing. I mean, it blew our mind to see this.
Here, y'all.
Yeah.
This is a collection of all horror vinyl.
Look at that, man.
That's best.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And I'll show you a couple here. I had brought this one out. This is wow, right?
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
I want to show you the label on it, but that would take me setting this down here. There's some other. This one is in like one of my all-time favorites. Yeah. And the craziest thing, I had an episode for Creepshow, a new like TV series, and this guy that did the music, John Harrison, directed it. And this is
nice.
Been like this has always been like my favorite soundtrack. So I'm really nervous to talk to him on the phone. And at the end of the conversation, I was like, "Hey, Mr. Harrison, I wanted you to know that I have the original Creepshow vinyl." And he was like, "Dude, I don't even have that." Hold on, ooh, this looks like the original stuff. Hold on, because there's a lot of new stuff too. But ooh, look at that one. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Well, it's like really kind of silly and whatever, but it's all have. This is Bird Box, which is the most thrilling thing in the world, and I actually listened to this while writing MALLORY, which a complete full circle head trip.
Meta. No, that's cool, man.
I want to show you one more original one. Ooh, what's this one? Hold on. Well, Vampiros Lesbos, no. But there's I wanted to show you. I have I don't know where it is right now. I have the original of The Thing. This is the very first one I ever bought right here. The band was playing a show, and I didn't even have a record player at the time when I bought this. And my bandmates were like, why'd you buy that? And I was like, I don't know. And that started like what's become like a lifelong obsession now with horror movie soundtracks.
That's awesome.
What's the movie? I wish I remembered it. I was going through and I was assembling a whole bunch of movies to watch. And there's a movie, a horror film, where it's about the experiences and the craziness involving someone who makes the sound effects for scary movies.
It's
I don't know.
But it's that kind of name.
Yeah, right.
It's
like named after the process itself almost.
Yeah, it starts with a B. I saw it in the Detroit Institute of Arts in like the theater there. It was awesome. The old school seats and like where he slowly starts to, he played Hitchcock in a movie, that guy. The guy that was the sound of the Foley guy, where he like someone on screen getting stabbed and he like stabs a head of lettuce. What is the name of it? Starts with B, dude.
Oh, Barbarian Sound.
Yeah, Barbarian.
Yeah, Barbarian.
I've never even heard of that, man.
It looks fascinating, and I figured with all of the vinyls that you've got, I thought, man, that might be something he'd be.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. And again, have you seen a movie in that theater at the DIA?
I haven't. No.
It's so cool, dude. It's like the old school seats. Allison, my fiance, is from the Upper Peninsula, and till recently, the movie theater up there was like the old school, like 80s kind of thing. Like no comfy chairs, like nothing like that. I had a drink that I was carrying, not booze, but like something that I was carrying in, and I was like, "Oh, I need to throw this out, right?" And they were like, "No, just don't spill it." And I'm like, "Wait, what year is this?" It's like the 80s. Right. What's going on here? Yeah. But I even saw the remake of Carrie there, so it was that was recent-ish. That thing was there.
Yeah, we have one in Grand Rapids because I'm in Grand Rapids and Chad's in the Battle Creek area, and like we've got one here, kind of a vintage one called Wealthy Theater, and they play. I don't know if they do midnight shows, but I think that they do every so often. They'll have midnight shows. They have a lot of people come in for film festivals of different kinds, and so it's always. And they're trying to keep that vintage feel to it all. Yeah.
There was a period of time where Allison and I were heavily considering moving to Grand Rapids. Her brother lives out there.
Oh, I love it.
And
I love it, man.
Yeah, it's amazing. We love it too. Yeah.
Yeah. And just the feel of the place, and it's so artsy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to do there than there is Battle Creek. That's for sure. Yeah, they actually have a record store. We don't even have one of those anymore, or a bookstore.
Oh no! Where do you go for that? Grand Rapids? Because Grand Rapids, that's totally badass, old school. It's not Redo or whatever. It's next to
Redux. There's one called Redux.
Oh, yeah, Redux. That's
yeah,
what it is.
yeah.
And then is that the one? What's the one next to it? One is like more like specialized, and one is just like used books.
Yeah, the one that's just used books. It's and where they're stacked. I mean, you walk in and they're all on the walls. They're stacked up on the bottom. You kind of got to get on the floor and peek around and crawl. Yeah, that's Redux. That's like my home away from home.
Yeah, that place. Yeah. I got some killer horror. There's a lot of horror paperbacks back here, like a ton of them stacked up back there. That I got some of them from there too. Yeah,
we used to have a couple really cool bookstores here. One in particular called KRATTS that was just giant, man. And it just had room after room, and you thought you were done looking through the whole thing, and then there'd be another little hallway, and there'd be like 3 other little rooms. It was really cool, but it closed down a little while ago, and they sold comic books there too, but mostly books, and they had all kinds of stuff, man.
That's where I got into comics, man.
Is it KRATTS?
Yeah, that's how I think I bought. I forget what it was. I don't know if it's Samurai Rabbit or what it was called, man. But it was like one of my first comic books I ever bought, and I just thought it looked so dope to have this rabbit knowing kung fu and slaying people left and right. I'm like, I don't know what this is, but it's awesome. So I got into that through KRATTS, and then KRATTS went away, man. It was gone.
Yeah,
it's a great name for a bookstore, KRATTS. I don't know why, but it is.
Yeah. They had all the all past issues of Fangoria in there. They even had they had some action figures in there too, like really obscure ones, like the Toxic Avenger, like Saturday morning cartoon show that I can't remember the name of that show, but they had figures and they would sell those in there. And great bookstore, man. I wish
one of my ultimate fantasies, and this isn't supposed to be a segue to the movie, but I feel like it kind of could work, is to open like a horror theater here in the area. Like take an old school theater, and it's like understood that sort of like Grand Guignol, that like a series of short plays, horror plays will be really, that's like the main idea, like a horror theater. And then in the front, the lobby area would be like KRATTS, like a used bookstore, you know, that you walk through to get to the area in the back. And then like if I ever did pull this off, I would be like, Chad, you got to write like a play for, you know, and come and cast it or whatever you want, but like we'll put it on, you know, in this like place, whatever. Maybe bands could play there, I don't know, that kind of thing. And the reason I was saying it was kind of a segue is that there was a lot in the movie that we're going to end up talking about that I felt was vaudevillian or theatrical. It felt like Grand Guignol, felt like horror theater. Should I just start talking about some of what I mean by that, or do you want to like get there in a certain way?
Well, actually, it does kind of segue into. I know Jeremiah had a question specifically about your like readings,
live readings.
Yeah, the live readings, and
okay, I got you, man. All right, yes, I do have a question about this. The live readings, yes. All right. Well, I watched the documentary about you, man, which by the way is totally awesome.
Called The Quilt of Delirium, and it's by Scott Allen, a fellow.
What an amazing name too, man. I don't know if you thought of that beforehand or if it just came out organically, but when you said Quilt of Delirium, I was like, that's so smooth, man. That's like sweet scotch. Just you're good. You know, but
it was too.
Yeah. You mentioned in there though how these readings for your books, and I thought it was so fascinating. You know, you admitted that you were nervous about things you don't like, you know, a lot of public speaking and stuff like that, or you didn't, right? You weren't very comfortable with that, and that you blindfolded people. You had them blindfolded, and it kind of reminded me almost in a weird way of almost the kind of way that Kurt Cobain dealt with his nervousness of being in front of people. He used to sing facing the wall during practice so that he didn't see the people who would congregate to watch him. He was nervous about it.
No, it's really interesting, right? Because what you're nervous about with stage fright isn't your voice or your thoughts or your ideas, or it's what you look like when you're delivering them. Like all eyes on you, like how it's like, oh my God, like Kurt Cobain, you just said he could face the wall and sing. So it's not your voice you're worried about. It's not the song. You just want the eyes on you and like to see you doing this. And I had for a long time, that was like a major struggle. And I don't know if I'll ever be in a position where it is just me again, because of what was born from those early Bird Box readings, which I was, honest to God, dude, I was straight up trying to think of a way to not have to do this alone. And I play in a band, the High Strong, and I asked some of them if they would play scary music, and I'll play the organ. And even then I was like, what am I just going to read this? I'd sound like I have like a Vincent Price voice. I don't know, what am I doing? Allison, MALLORY. And all of a sudden I'm like, wait, there's something theatrical happening. And then it was like, oh shit, wait a minute. If we wanted to get a radio play, a radio show sort of vibe, the audience would maybe close their eyes. Well, guess what? The book is about blindfolds, Josh. So why don't we blindfold the audience? And it was just such like a no-brainer. It just like unspooled in front of me, and I'm like, oh, that's what we're doing. It wasn't like, should we? It was like, that's what we're doing. We're blind. Allison, we need to make a suitcase full of blindfolds. Allison and I toured around the state of Michigan and like the Midwest with a organ, this like old keyboard organ, and a suitcase full of blindfolds in 2014. And I, honestly, God, I felt at the time that it couldn't get any bigger or better even than that. It was just felt like it was like so bizarrely theatrical that we went to one bookstore in, was it Grand Rapids? No. We were in Kentucky or Estonia at this point. And the person that ran the bookstore was like, so we heard that at one point the female in the show like screams uncontrollably, like bloody horror, and is there any way that she can kind of keep that down, say like tone it down? And we were like, no.
Yeah, right.
Like, that's like the best moment of the freaking show is when MALLORY, like her mind cracks in half and Allison like screams and everyone's blind and not expecting it, So there was, I don't know. Hopefully we have unlimited time to talk. I don't mean it to go on and on, but there was one time where I had to read alone. And you guys know Mio or Mayo? I think it's Mayo, right? Michigan. It's like up here somewhere. You guys
never been there.
No.
And Allison couldn't make it for whatever reason, and I was like, I'll just go do it alone. And I'm like totally nervous. It's like 200 miles away. The whole drive, I'm like, I gotta freaking do this. I'm gonna play the organ. I'm gonna blindfold the audience. This is kind of freaky, right? And I get up there, and the whole audience, it was a library. The whole audience was like 11 80-year-olds. And I was like, oh shit, what am I don't even know what to do now. Should I just like read the book, And then I was like, no, I'm just gonna do it. So I told them, listen, this is how we normally do it. I have a suitcase full of blindfolds alone at this library in the middle of Michigan. And I'm like, usually I blindfold the audience. They're like, okay. And I'm like, okay. So I blindfold these 11 80-year-olds, and I'm playing an organ, reading from Bird Box. This is 2014. And when it was done, this older guy, it was a man. Yeah. He said that was exactly like radio shows from my youth. That was like really cool. And I was like, dude, it was sort of a turning point for me in the stage fright thing that you brought up. Now, to condense the rest of this story, the readings have only gotten more and more elaborate from there. Stage settings, props, actors, performers. But I'm always aware of never bringing it all the way to memorize lines, because then that's just straight up theater. I still want it to be a reading. So there's someone narrating these like scenarios. But yeah, so again, there are elements of November that struck that chord with me in a big way. I mean, you could even just say the ghosts are just wearing white and painted white faces, right? I mean, that's just as old school theater as you can get, right? I am
right. Yeah.
Or the plague with the painted black face, like now I am death and dies, Like,
I thought it was such a fascinating thing that you were talking about. And part of that's that, I've been involved in radio. And so growing up, one of my favorite things I used to back with cassette tapes, you know what I mean? I would put the old cassette player. I had, what was it called, man? The Talk Boy. The Talk Boy, I think, was the device that was used in Home Alone, and they could change yeah. So I had a Talk Boy, and I would put that right next to the TV, and I would record those old episodes of Batman from the 60s and 70s, right? And I'd record those, and I would listen to them at night. you know, because I didn't have a TV in my room or anything. I would just push play and just listen to the recording on the cassette tape of the TV show. And then as I got older, I started to think, you know, like, well, what goes into radio? And I went to school for mass comm and journalism. And so for theory and for practice of it. And so during that time, to become familiar with vaudeville, for example, to become familiar with the idea of live recordings back then, where there was a lot of reading. In fact, what you're talking about, there was a lot of that. You'll see the, you know, people go on and they look up pictures of the people who are talking in real time. The music and the sound effects were all in real time, and the person talking was in real time. But a lot of times those individuals were reading. So they had their script right in front of them.
Yep.
And they're reading it. And some of them were in front of live audiences. And so when you were talking about the way that you were doing this, and you've already answered my question, I was going to ask if you've built on it and where the limit was. And so you said the limit, it seems to be, is no memorization. You know, you don't memorize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. And you know, again, back to the horror theater idea, like I want to do it. I don't necessarily have to be the guy writing those plays or whatever, the anthology, the play that runs that night, whatever. If I do, though, yes, okay, now we're talking like we're putting on a show, it's theater, blah, blah, blah. But if we're talking about a book release, I just don't want it ever to, I want to stretch the book reading as far as we can go. And so start with me in that library with 11, 80-year-olds. Go there with inspection. We rented out the chapel and the Masonic Temple. We had like filming, a film crew. We had lighting and photographs and actors and all. I mean, the setting was mind-blowing. MALLORY, which I'll just kind of say it features a train at one point. Well, the Detroit Zoo has a train that we have rented out for the reading to take place like on this train, as everyone's like blindfolded as it's going like around the Detroit Zoo and stuff. There's a lot more involved than just that. But now we're talking about a moving setting, but it's still reading the book. There's still like a narrator, even if that's pre-recorded, like your story, even if it's pre-recorded and we just play it. And then Allison and I and everyone, one of the beauties of everyone being blindfolded is like, you know, Allison and I can get other things done while the reading is happening. You know what I mean? We can set up the next thing or something. Let's say when they get off the train, there needs to be rope set up here for them to follow to here. Oh, Allison and I can take care of that while they're listening to this, whatever. I just wanted to say real fast though that that's an interesting thing, because a lot of artists will look for those breadcrumbs that led to them being an artist. Oh, I wrote a really long paper, or I used to sing for family gathering. That story of you with the radio thing is really interesting for a guy that's your breadcrumb to that got into radio. That's a cool thing. It's like you've always been into this. That's a cool thing to have.
It's like yours with Jewish basketball.
Yeah.
And that story.
Yeah.
And I would love to pick your brain another time, man, and ask you about that Jewish basketball league. And I can't wait for you to write a book about your life. And that way you'll be able to go into great detail about the amazing night that led to what, 30 or 40 pages of handwritten stuff about this basketball game in a league. I didn't even know there was a such thing as Jewish basketball leagues.
It was unbelievable, dude. Travel league. You still have to try out and stuff, but it wasn't like high school. It just wasn't. It was loose, you know? Yeah. It was like, I think they probably hoped that only 15 kids tried out because they wanted everyone to play, you know? But yeah, that's my breadcrumb, is that moment, that kind of thing because you know, we all, I don't know, it's romantic or something to think that you've always had this in you, you know? It's almost like, not embarrassing, but you don't want to be like, oh, one day I just started liking books, you know? It's cool to like look back and see that you've like always had this in you or something. And at the time, junior in high school, writing 40 pages or whatever was pure adrenaline. I wasn't thinking I'm going to be a writer. It was just, and years later, I'm like, oh shit, that's where it started.
Yeah, that is cool. It's always nice to have some kind of genesis to be able to tell somebody or even reflect back on and say, yeah, this is where I came from.
See, that goes back again to author as character. That's a big thing for me. You can almost argue that every book I read is nonfiction, because what I'm really am reading is the author writing this.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, it's almost like I can imagine like the words traveling up like a transparent pane, and behind it, the author is sitting there the whole time. And he's not like, he or she is not like staring at me or staring me down, but like he or she is there. And I'm very aware of that character. This is why this has got me in trouble sometimes, because I'm not like, you know, I'm not necessarily the hugest, what's the right phrase, proponent of like, oh, it's got to be character driven. You empathize with the character, all this. I get the character's number one, and I get that that's what everyone relates to most. But what if you include the artist as a character as well? Like when I see a Tarantino movie, I'm not, or a Hitchcock movie, I'm not necessarily like, you know, empathizing with the lead and the birds, you know, but I am with Hitchcock. I'm thinking about him the whole freaking time, and that he decided to do this and this, and he made these decisions, and the, you know, so to me, it's almost in a weird way that every single artistic experience I have is, in a sense, it's nonfiction. I'm just watching the judgment scale of an artist at play.
It's almost like Gonzo, like Hunter S. Thompson, Gonzo journalism, where he was forthright about the idea that the writer is a character, right? And that you can't separate certain biases that you might have, you know, that you will make decisions. You're making decisions on angles and emphases and all these other things that are at play in the story that you're presenting. Yeah. And you're not this abstraction out there that's detached from the story, and it's a conduit that's just passively it's flowing through you, that you're an active part in it. It's kind of almost like the same idea of discerning the voice of the narrator. Which I'm seeing in Mark Twain. I'm reading the Tom Sawyer right now to my son. I'm reading it out loud because we were doing the homeschool stuff. You know, the kids are home during the plague, so we're all home, and so I'm reading out loud. I'm reading Tom Sawyer to him, and it's amazing to see, because Mark Twain was so good at making the people speak with a dialect, right, and an accent with this, that the narrator doesn't. The narrator, it was amazing to see, and I was explaining to my son how that works, but the way that you're talking about it, it's like extrapolating it and saying, well, what about beyond the narrator? Yep. Because the writer is also making those decisions regarding the narrator.
Well, I think, well, like part of the reason we love artists like that we do is because like that they came up with this, that they thought of this, you know. It's not, because it's funny because the inverse is true too. Like any idea is good if it's executed well, right? But I am like the kind of guy, like I'm, you know, just a huge fan of the conceit. And we were talking earlier about, you know, with books and being able to sense that launching point, that inspiration for writing a book. I'm just like, you know, take like the Twilight Zone. Like we don't walk away from the Twilight Zone like torn up. We're not like, oh God, I'm emotionally gutted. We're like, that's a freaking badass idea. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's maybe like the best TV show of all time. And like when we don't walk away from that like oh, I'm so worried about him or her, or crying. We don't cry at the end of the Twilight Zone. We're just like our lids blown a little. Yeah. And so I don't see this as an egocentric thing. I also don't think it's necessary. I love Thomas Harris and Thomas Ligotti. They're both, you know, Bentley Little. They're all, none of them are spotlight, you know, hounds or whatever, right? I don't even know if I've ever even seen Thomas Ligotti, right? But for me, that's like, it's not ego. It's like, it's here either way. It's not like I want to be the center. It's like I'm aware that we're all these books on my shelf are all ideas, were once just invisible ideas in a guy or girl's head. And that part of it is so interesting to me.
Yeah. When I first started writing, it was important to me that I didn't want to. The only ideas I had were darker, like horror ideas, but I knew at the same time that I didn't want to always be only writing that, and I wanted to be able to be like Joe Lansdale, where I didn't quite understand how that was going to happen, but that's what I wanted. You know, like McCammon has done it too, and of course Stephen King. You know, whether he's written The Stand and Salem's Lot, or then Eyes of the Dragon and or Shawshank or something like that, but particularly Lansdale. And that was super important to me to be able to somehow get there And I didn't understand it for a while, and now I do, that it was about that voice, just that as long as that voice stays with, like Lansdale, I could hand you, a Western or a horror or the drive-in or a crime book or bizarro stuff and not tell you who it is, and then have you read it and you'll be like, this is Lansdale. Doesn't even matter. And that was
you real fast. I'm right now I'm reading Peter Straub's Houses Without Doors, and I'm like, ooh, that looks good right now, the lighting on it. And it's I absolutely love it. It's like shorter stuff, it's novellas, that kind of thing. So I'm this far away, this ending far away from starting The Bottoms. I've never read it by Lansdale. Is it like, is that one just like holy?
I haven't read The Bottoms, but I read the short story that came before that, and then he turned it into The Bottoms and just made it longer.
Yeah,
it's I didn't even know that until Joe told me that. He's like, well, have you read The Bottoms? And I was like, no. And it's basically the same thing, but like the novel version of it. And man, that story was great.
Yeah, I read By Bizarre Hands, that collection of short stories. Some of that was like, and I don't mean to like put like draw a line in the sand or something, but I'm not that big on brutality. It's just at some point maybe brutality became like too realistic in film. I don't know what it is. I really don't know what it is, but I think it was the movie Martyrs actually like messed me up or something. Yeah. And I was like, ever since then I've been like, I don't really like. Allison and I were watching Daredevil, and then I was really liking it, and then there's this scene where they're slamming this guy's head in a car door like over and over. And I'm like, all right, you know what? I don't know. I just don't want to watch this. I definitely don't want to watch. Hold on. Oh no. Well, I think you're about to have a visitor here. Buddy, do you want to say hi? Come here.
Oh yeah.
Come here. Come here. Hi.
Oh wow.
Hi.
Look at that.
You look good. Yeah. Oh shit. They're both in here. I may have to go. Okay. Look, see them both.
What kind of dog, man?
So Valo is a Weimaraner.
Yes.
Our neurotic, brilliant Weimaraner. And this is Tuli, our really sweet Wisla.
What kind is the second one?
Wisla.
Wisla.
They look like almost exactly the same, but Wisla's actually came first. Weimaraners, I think, were like bred off them or something. Hey, Allison. She's listening to Outlander in headphones, so I'm gonna have to remove these two on my own. Do you guys want to? Okay. Well, give me 1 second. All right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Was it us, Chad? Was it the two of us that were making a video or a podcast when my Saint Bernard was down here? Or was that another show? I may have been doing a different show.
That wasn't me.
It wasn't you, man. I'll tell you. I was sitting there and we were having this conversation. I hear this crazy noise, man. I'm downstairs in the basement. I've got my set down here, so that way it's insulated from I have a bunch of kids, and so the noises and everything, you can pick it up with these microphones. So I'm down here, and I'm hearing this crazy noise. I'm like, well, dude, what's going on, man? It's kind of spooking me. It's all dark over in the corner. I'm getting kind of spooked, and I look over, and I got a Saint Bernard, man.
Oh, you do?
Oh yeah, she's huge. Awesome. Yeah, her name's Coco, and so yeah, she's a beautiful beast, about 4 years old. It's interesting because that's kind of small for the breed. I guess the girls are like 120 to 140 pounds, and the boys are like 160 to 180, and ours is 95. So she's like a runt.
Oh, geez.
So she's a runt at 95 pounds.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so she's 58, and she's like, I mean, she can like knock me over when I'm like walking around. Like I can't even imagine 180 or 160, man.
Yeah, we have a Newfie across the street. We have our neighbors for Christmas. They got a Great Dane, just gigantic dog. I mean, dwarfs. Yeah, it's just massive. And then the ones next to them, the neighbors next to them, just got a Newfie. So our block has gigantic dogs.
Yeah, your block is protected.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I wanted to
dog.
Yeah, my son. I got my son a dog, and I don't know why she's in here, but I wanted to build some hype for Mallory, man. So I wanted to ask you a couple questions before we.
I would love to.
Yeah. So, I read Bird Box like 4 years ago. Loved it. Great book.
Thank you.
And I'm wondering, because of the world that you've built, there's so much potential to explore. I mean, that was just an isolated, incident. And so before the success of the book, were you already entertaining the idea of maybe doing another one, or did that come secondary to just seeing the demand of that, like the movie and everything?
So the original rough draft of Bird Box was about twice as long. And it's a lot of stuff to talk about with that, but I'll keep it somewhat brief. It was about twice as long. And when I was paring it down, I got rid of a thread that I loved, but they're just, and you'll know this in your own stuff, there just wasn't room for it, man.
Yeah.
If I left this in there, oh my God, hello. If I left it in there, then I mean, it would have had to been like 100 something like pages more, you know, like just to work and you got rid of all the like tension of it and added a whole new like idea. So I got rid of it. So forever, my agent had said like, hey, have you ever considered a second one of this? You know, and it's not like Bird Box came out as like a, you know, New York Times bestseller or something when it first came out. It was all that from the movie, but it wasn't at first for like 4 years or 4.5, whatever. But she was always like, have you thought of it? I'm like, well, I got one idea. And then people would suggest like, have you ever thought of maybe like what's going on in India? What's going on like in some other part of Michigan, whatever. Because to me, Bird Box was always the monsters that do on Maple Street, which is like Twilight Zone, you know. Yeah. It's just the most contained, this street, this house,
right,
for this boat, this woman, these kids. That's it. And I never even thought of it as end times. I just thought of it as this problem in this house and in this boat, or a canoe, rowboat, whatever. And so I had like an idea, but I've also got a million ideas, and I've written 32 novels now, and I've got short stories and a list of other stuff I want to write. And so it was like, yeah, no, I might do that, but no, yeah, not yet. No, not yet. And then Allison and I were at the premiere. We went to the premiere of Bird Box. We were at the Netflix office, and the screening room was called the Upside Down. I've never been to something like this before. And we were in, you know, they were like nice theater chairs like us, but there's only like 8 in the whole thing, and there was no previews, nothing. It's just the movie just lights go out, movie starts, you know. And right away, Sandra Bullock is like telling these kids, like, you know, kneeling in front of them, like in the book. And I was like, oh, what's going on right now? Like, I hadn't seen any of this footage or anything, you know? Yeah. And at the end of the movie, I mean, I was like justifiably like emotional as hell during this, right? And at the end of it, I announced her and I was like, well, now what happens to her? And she's like, oh, okay. Like, you know, I think that's up to you. And I'm like, well, no, but I want to know. I want like more of this.
Yeah.
And so then without any like, you know, foreknowledge or preparation or whatever, the movie was insane phenomenon explosion. Wow. I can give you examples of how ill prepared we were for that, but just suffice to say, nobody thought that was coming. And then the book becomes a bestseller and all this. And my agent again is like, so you want to write that thread?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, maybe I will. So it's a bit of a combination. It was having this thread on me for a long time, and then the movie does super well, and it's like, yes, dude, now is the right time. Just do it right now, and then move on. Like, as you know, I'm already writing Carpenter's Farm right now, and whatever. So, but the weird thing is that I wrote that thread into a novel, and then we were on the 4th rewrite. Me and the editor at Del Rey. We were at the line edit already. This was beyond macro stuff, you know? And I said to her, I'm like, you know what? I think I got a better idea. I think I want to scratch the thread again. He's like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no, I think you got a better idea. And I scratched it. I freaking got rid of it again.
Wow, man.
And wrote entirely. I count that as one of my 32 books I've written, because it's a full 300 novel that is not at all Mallory, but it has Mallory in it.
Wow.
So I started it again, and that process went like that. It was like I sent the editor every 10,000 words, and like, you know, just like, because we were past, like, I was supposed to do the line edit. We're supposed to be done. And I was like, throw it over the plate one more time. I'm going to get a hold of it this time, you know? Like, I didn't get it the first time. I'm going to get it this time, and I did. I believe I did. And so it's very interesting to me to see that thread died twice, and I held on to it for years, man. You know, you have an idea right now you've had for years.
Oh yeah.
I've held on to that thread for years, and I was like, you finally made it. Oh shit, no, you didn't. You're now relegated. You're
Well, I don't know if you can talk about this, but I'm assuming that with the success of Bird Box, that maybe they're already poking at you for the film rights to Mallory.
So we don't really know yet. I don't mean to say this to sound PC or whatever. There's nothing to announce, but we don't know for sure exactly where that's all at. We've talked to the producers and we've heard that Netflix loves the book and stuff like that, but we don't know anything much beyond that right now.
I mean, because I know how. I mean, look at some of the sequels we've gotten just because something got big. Even if the movie wasn't that great,
yeah,
it wasn't worthy of a sequel. They just like shoehorned something in, you know.
Yeah.
Your thing is just like I said,
perfect
because it was an isolated, situation. There's other stories going on, but I mean, I know you're sticking with, you're the same protagonist that you had, Mallory. But there's just so much that you can go off. But I've seen them jump. If something sells the first time, it's like they've got to or do a remake. And the remakes that they're doing now, they only have to be, I think Cabin Fever got a remake like 6 or 7 years after the original.
No, that's crazy.
Grudge again. I don't know how many times that's been remade.
I know. It really is wild, man. I know that Cabin Fever one really was. Yeah, it's like it's going on all of a sudden. Now we're talking about like 6 or 7 years or whatever it was. Yeah, that was a weird one, man.
It may have not even been that long. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I mean, in like my reality, I'm like, well, they got to do it, right? Yeah, that's what I'm like thinking. Right. But we don't know. We don't know for sure if that's true or not. So.
It would break my heart, man. It would go down. There'd be like a handful of shows and films in history where it just set itself up perfectly to keep going and it didn't. Kind of like District 9. You know what I'm saying? Like District 9, it ends off on this thing where you're anticipating it's going to come back in a couple of years, in 3 years. It's been like, 12 years or something. I mean, it's something ridiculous. And so it's so frustrating to see, or I know this is a little bit off the wall, but stuff like a Firefly or Angel, TV shows even where you have this show or this movie that you really love and you really get into it. And it seems as if it's just set up perfectly for another episode.
Yeah.
Like it's ready to happen. A sequel to this bad boy. I'm in. And then you're like, oh no, we're just going to let it go. They can't do that, man.
You know what?
They can't do that to you, buddy.
The one that haunts me is Deadwood. Ooh, Deadwood.
Yeah.
Deadwood,
good, man. Yeah.
Genius, man. Oh man. I could have watched like 6, 7, 8, 10 more years of that stuff, man.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you something, man, about the method. Okay. And I'm not going to ask you if you wrote this by hand. I know that you've done that for a number of things. In fact, a friend of yours talked about how you've got this huge stack, in fact, of these hard copy books that you've done written by hand. Or if you lock yourself in your room for any period of time or things like that. But I was reading an interview with Bookish over at USA Today with you. And they asked you a question on whether you'd done any real life experiments to discover the other senses and things like that. And you'd mentioned how you walked around the apartment a couple times and with your eyes closed, and you have these finches, right? And you brush them against your hand or your neck or your face. And that's what you had done. Did you do any more for this book? Did you do anything? Because I think you did exceptionally well for doing very limited real life type experiments. But since that time, since your interview with Bookish, is that something you pursued, or did you just kind of go with what you had before?
I can't even believe that the answer to that is no, because I remember at the end of Bird Box and when it came out thinking like, why didn't I ever just take one walk around the block blindfold? Just one. Like I could have had a girlfriend or like my brother, just like somebody next to me and like make sure I'm okay, Recently at the zoo, Allison walked a really long way with her eyes closed. It was just something weird to do. And I guided her. I'm like, okay, now just walk a little bit to the left. And we're talking like this went on for almost 6-7 minutes or something. And that's a long time to walk with your eyes closed. But I know the one thing I did do with Mallory is that Bird Box was written in the third, like the, I don't even know what you would call it, but the third floor of like this old mansion in Detroit, this old super awesome big house. And there was like a sort of a ballroom, a bedroom, a bathroom, and a kitchen. And that was the whole thing. The writing desk was in the middle of this ballroom. I wrote Bird Box there. I had a bunch of birds that were flying freely around the apartment. And then, hold on, can you hear the dogs trying to get in? Hey, wait, Allison. Hold on. I started going crazy.
They're like, let me in.
All right, hold on.
Yeah, take your time, man. No worries.
Hi, baby.
Hey, can you do something about these lunatic animals of ours? You're on the air, kind of, by the way.
Sure. Okay. So Valor's being crazy?
I don't. Yeah, it's either the two of them or there's a werewolf in the house. All right, thank you. I love you.
Love you.
All right, bye.
Yeah. So, Jeremiah, what have you been checking out on the screen or reading or whatever? You get anything?
Well, I finished Inferno, and I finished in Purgatorio by Dante. And so I read both of those, and right now I'm on Paradiso, and it's excellent. Of course, I loved Inferno. In fact, it's one of the most ballsy things I've ever read in my life, because he's writing about a lot of real people. So people who are alive. I don't know if anyone were alive at the time that he wrote it, but I thought, and I said, some of these people were princes or cardinals of the church or the Pope and stuff, going through these levels of hell. And I said, that'd be like talking about presidents, and then Billy Graham was in this level of hell, eating through somebody and the body was going into his mouth. And I just thought it was really intense that this guy, that he wrote that way. But I absolutely loved it. I love the difficulty with it. And I'd like to read some different translations. I wish I could do it in Italian. I cannot. I'm learning Latin, but I don't know Italian. But the thing is that I like the meter and the rhyme scheme, right? And there's I don't know if it's terza rima or what the proper way of describing it, but it's in sets of threes, right? And so it's an interesting rhyme scheme, and the idea of it is that it's constantly just barreling along. It doesn't have the kind of roses are red, violets are blue, I love my wife, she loves me too, where it gets that sense of resolve. You start, it's almost like music. You start with a root note and you end with the root note, and that's the sense of completion. And instead, this system that Dante uses is constantly marching forward, and it just doesn't stop until the very end of the canto. And so I'm reading that, and then my cousin wanted me to watch that movie Mother, and so he wanted me to watch it, and so I watched it. And hoping to do, maybe even with the show here, doing a thing, having him come on and talking about the movie and his thoughts on it. But as I watched it, I thought, it's interesting. I know that it's a criticism of the Judeo-Christian God, right? I know that's in part what it's about. But I said, man, there's a lot of these kind of Gnostic themes that run through that. Not only through that, but also through Noah. I've read reviews and analysis of Noah. And so I have this book, and because we're doing a video, I can show it. Check this out. For those listening on the podcast, you got to go check it out. It's called the Other Bible.
That's
and cool. It's huge. It's massive. And it's got the Gnostic Gospels, Dead Sea Scrolls, Visionary Wisdom Texts, Kabbalah, Christian Apocrypha, Judas Pseudepigrapha, all that. And so going and reading the creation myths that he would be relying on heavily when writing this. And so I said, well, why not just go and read it? And so that way I kind of have a better idea for the exact myths that he's falling back on.
That's awesome.
In order to make the movie. And so I've been reading the Other Bible, and I've been reading Dante.
Man, the Dante rhythm thing is like screaming to me right now, because my favorite writers are the ones that kind of just like Moby Dick is one of the most spirited books I've ever read in my life. Edgar Allan Poe, Walt Whitman, like people that seem like the beats were like this, but just literally seemed like they were like freaking on fire while they were writing it. I want to read Dante now. I read that. if I read it, it was because I was supposed to in high school. You know what I mean? But I've never like actually sat down and given myself to that. And that sounds like exactly what I want to read right now.
Yeah.
So what have you been reading, Josh?
So it's interesting because I am reading some horror, and I just read Stephen Graham Jones.
Oh man, I can't wait to read that one.
Dude, yeah, this is unbelievable. In fact, from what I've read, I mean, I don't really think in blanket terms like this, but this is his best one from what I've read.
Yeah,
and that's, as you know, that's saying a lot, dude. This guy.
Yeah.
Right? I've been reading Peter Straub, as I showed you, which is, I'm loving every second of that. I just read Wonderland.
Okay.
Do you know how to say her name? Is it Zoe or Zoje?
I think it's probably Zoe. I think.
Yeah,
So,
how do you spell it? How do you spell that?
Zoie.
No, Zoje.
Oh, J-E.
Oh.
Zoe?
Yeah, I don't know. I should just write her and ask her, because there's been a few times where I've been in interviews and I want to like talk about her, and I just don't know how to pronounce her name. But the book's great.
Could it be a Z instead of a Z? Like isn't it Zizek? Isn't there a guy? Forget that guy's name. Debated Jordan Peterson over socialism and capitalism. And yeah.
I think I saw that.
Yeah.
And this is the surprise to me. Now, I met him in Chicago, and Chicago was super interesting because it was like the last time I hung out with a bunch of people, and before all this happened. And so like this at the Comic-Con in Chicago, and I met Joe Hill there and Christina Henry and others, and it was, we went from a panel and everyone's in this bar and whatever, and everyone says goodbye to each other. Allison and I drive back home, and then this all happened like right after that. So it's almost like Chicago's become this like sort of how things used to be like moment for me. And I met Terry Brooks while we were there, and
cool.
I had lunch with him, and then we also had dinner. All the Del Rey authors went out, and I freaking loved him and his wife. And I'm like, you know what? I almost never read fantasy. I'm going to do it, right? And I plowed through the Sword of Shannara, and now I'm reading book 2, The Elfstones of Shannara. And I'm discovering, and this is in step with me watching Outlander that I had mentioned before, is that fantasy's kind of a nice thing to read during a pandemic, man. Like I don't necessarily read to escape. I really don't. It's more to like live it and think about it and think of the author and ideas and whatever. But one of the reasons I love horror is because it's the imagination unchained. Like totally, and I think I was literally whatever you want. Fantasy is too, but it's a little warmer. And like right now, I don't think I realized that like I needed that or something. So like Terry Brooks, I got another of his books right here, like waiting to go next, where a lawyer buys like a magic kingdom that doesn't work or something. But the point is, like, I've never been huge on fantasy, but I'm finding myself like, wow, this is really nice right now. It's the imagination still run loose, just a little freaking warmer, and zero brutality or that kind of thing. So that's what I've been at. What about you?
A comfort cozy read. I've been reading Calamity, which is a Western by Matt Hayward. It's not out yet. I think he gave it to me sent it to me a couple months ago. And it's basically, he mentions in the beginning, it's for Jack Ketchum. And it basically it feels like, anyway, I'm about a third of the way through. It feels like a retelling of Red by Jack Ketchum, but set in Western times and using a horse. So,
cool. Like someone shoots the guy's horse and then he goes and tracks him down.
Yeah, and here's the cover of my Kindle, which that's all you get because the book's not out. The book's not out, so it's on there, and I'm reading it on there. But that's I'm still reading. After discovering Ron Rash, I'm still reading that short story collection that I think I mentioned in the last episode. That guy's amazing. A darker Jack Ketchum, a darker Raymond Carver, a less dark Jack Ketchum, Ron Rash.
You can't have a darker Jack Ketchum. Doesn't exist.
No. Yeah. No, darker Raymond Carver, lighter Jack Ketchum, much lighter Jack Ketchum. But yeah, that's really all I've been reading. I'm trying not to read so many different things at a time because then I get I do this thing where I do the same thing with writing. I have like maybe 4 or 5 deadlines coming up from anthology invites, and then I've got a couple co-writing projects, and my plate got so full that I start to freeze and not do anything.
Yeah. I know, man. I know. It's like, it's just wiser to say no, like if you have to, whatever. Just because it means that you're going to be more present for all the things that you're already doing. Like, you say yes to everything, you're kind of saying no to everything also.
But it's part of my mindset. So when I read more than a couple books and I've got so many going on, then I tend to like stop reading for a while because I start to feel overwhelmed. And
yeah, me too. I'm like that too. Yeah. I almost feel like reading and writing, you have to be in reading or writing shape for it. And if I stop reading for like a month, then it's like, same thing if you didn't go to the gym or something. Like, it's not so easy to just jump back in.
Yeah.
If you're running or writing or reading every day, it's like it just keeps going.
Yeah. So Jeremiah, have you been watching any series or seen any movies other than November?
Oh man, yeah, bro. You set me down this crazy path, man.
The David Lynch
weird world. I'm still not out of it, man. I'm literally stuck in this labyrinth of Lynch all over the place. And oh yeah, man, we did, as our viewers and listeners know, our first episode was about Wild at Heart, a David Lynch movie. And that led me to this place where I said, well, I've seen Eraserhead. I've seen that picture all my life. I've seen this picture. And so I said, man, it always looked really cool. And it always looked like something I'd want to watch. And I watched it. And I mean, it's like taking a lot of LSD, man. It's a really crazy trip. You got to be in a certain mental space to really watch it and stick through. But it was awesome. I loved it, and that got me into watching these weird experimental films. I think last week I mentioned The Love of Zero, right, or the Future Cinema one that was just really bizarre. But all of this, it kept going back to one place, man, and it went back to this place called Twin Peaks. And so I went head first, dude, right into it. And I watched, I think in the last week, I have watched the entire season from the 90s, the first 8 of the first season and all, 22 of the second season. I have not seen the movie with David Bowie. I haven't seen that, but I skipped over that and went to the season, the third season, the one that came out in 2017. And I'm watching that, and I'm on 15 out of 18 right now. Just unbelievable stuff, man. It's, and you got to give it up to him. I mean, it's so bizarre. And you were right. When I mentioned I wanted to watch the third one, you said, look, you can't, this isn't really one for the kiddies, right? Yeah. It's not for the old kiddos. And there is some nudity, right? In fact, right from the beginning, I think the first episode, you've got some. Yeah. And then maybe episode 3, and then you don't have anything actually for another 8 episodes or something. And so there's not, it's not like every episode is packed with it, but it's so different from what people would ordinarily see watching TV. Mm-hmm. And I think he's always done that he's always blended. He's done amazingly at blending the film with television and making it so that you're in that weird tension where you feel like you're watching a movie, but you're watching TV. Mm-hmm. And it's this weird existential thing you're in watching it. And the cinematography, the way that he does what he does, Lynch, I just got to say, I mean, he's a genius, an artistic genius. And I love it. And the episode 8, and I'll talk, maybe I'll do a live stream someday about it, about episode 8 and just how weird the whole thing, the whole hour is a Lynch. It's what my kids call it. When something gets really weird, they're like, yep, that's a Lynch, right? That's like the moment. The whole episode is that. And it stands out, in fact, in the history of television. It stands out from anything else that's ever been done at that level. And I love it. So I'm really grateful, man, that this led to this place, because Twin Peaks has quickly become one of my favorite. And I'll say this last thing. I love the show Psych. Okay. And I remember we watched the whole series, everything of Psych, even the movie where they did a musical. And while we were watching, there was one episode that just really stood out. I didn't get it. It was real weird. They went to this town called Dual Spires, and they went there, and it's got this, there's a lady with a log, right? What's this all about? And there's all these weird things. It starts out, there's a chocolate bunny on the desk, and there's all of these things. And then at the end, the music that they're playing and the people dancing in this diner. And I'm thinking, what in the world is this? It was like the 30th anniversary of Twin Peaks, or the 20th. I'm so sorry. It would have been the 20th anniversary of Twin Peaks. And it was Sean, the guy who does the main character. I forget his name offhand. It's his favorite TV show. Major time influence on his life and on the show. So in honor of that, they did it. And all together, I think the last scene, which took place in a diner where they're dancing around, there's cuckoo-ness going on all in this diner. They said that there were over 700 references meant to point to something to do with the show. So when we watched it the second time through, my kids were like, well, there's the sheriff, right? Oh man, there's Bobby. Oh my gosh, look, he's this character. Wow, there's the library. And all of a sudden, everything, even the chocolate bunny at the beginning, even the sympathetic crying that Gus has, all of that began to make sense. And it was really cool. So I've been watching. I'm almost done with season 3.
Where do you watch Twin Peaks on?
Prime.
Oh, really?
Or is it Netflix? It's one of the two.
No, it's on Netflix. The third season is not on Netflix. I don't know where that is.
I got it on Prime because we have Showtime.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make the plunge, man. It's always been a gap.
Yes. Yeah, man.
Always been a gap for me and like we all have them, you know. For some reason, I just never read this guy, never read this girl, never saw, whatever it might be. Twin Peaks has always been a major gap for me, where it just sounds like everything I'm into is elements of it are there. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna read Dante also. Yeah, you
yeah, man. Yeah. So along for the ride with Josh. Yeah, doing good.
Yeah, have you been streaming anything, watching anything, Josh?
Yeah, but like I said before, Outlander. Allison's on book like 5 of it. And she's like seems like really into it, right? So finally I'm like, all right, fine, I'll watch an episode. And I was like, oh, this is pretty interesting. Do you guys know what it's about? Outlander?
Is it sci-fi?
It's borderline romance, but okay. It's so well written and so well thought out that I'm finding myself like this is amazing. It's a woman in the like 40s, mid 40s ends up like stepping through like, one of those like occult like stones in like, Scotland, that like takes her back to the 1700s, and it's her experience there. And there's like a lot of like steamy sex and love and all this like stuff. And that all sounds kind of like, I don't know. That sounds like for weeks or whatever while Allison's reading, I'm like, all right, I don't know. Maybe I'll watch an episode of Outlander. It's just really freaking well done. And again, it goes back to the fantasy trip I'm on, where I'm also reading horror at the same time because I've been on a pretty strict horror diet for 20, 30 years, I think. But it's been like a warm experience. I'm writing, working on Carpenter's Farm, I rewrite, do like an interview or blurbing a book. And then it's like, you know what? Yeah, let's go watch this this woman's like crazy escapades in the 1700s. I've been really loving it. What about you?
I just got done, and I think Josh, maybe you watched these too recently. I just watched I think there are 5 episodes on Shudder of cursed films.
Oh yeah,
little mini documentaries that go through different films that were made that are supposed to contain curses, like the Poltergeist, The Exorcist, The Omen, The Crow, and Twilight Zone, the movie. And I watched all of them, and super interesting stuff. I knew most of the Exorcist stuff just because I know everything that there is to know about that movie. It feels like, and the Twilight Zone, the movie, it wasn't so much like a bunch of different things. It was more of just the one incident where the helicopter killed the actor and the 2 children.
And you saw it too in the episode. You see it.
Oh, dude. Yeah, that was all of the other ones were kind of like, except for The Crow, the last 2 were less entertaining and more just heavy, man. Especially the Twilight Zone episode was super heavy.
I know. I walked away from that one oh man! I just watched. I mean, literally, I just watched a man and 2 kids get like separated by a helicopter.
Yeah, right. So, but the other ones were a lot more interesting. A great show, I think they're like half-hour piece. I think the one that I liked the most was The Omen, because man, there's some really bizarre stuff that happened.
Yeah, I like that one too. But I also loved that weird subliminal trick they played, the basketball.
The gorilla. Yeah.
Oh, it messed me up, man. I'm like counting, I'm counting, and then I don't want to ruin it for someone. And then the guy reset, and I'm like, wait, what? And I rewound it. I'm like,
I caught it, and I was like, what's going on here? But I was counting too, and I saw that, and I was like, huh? What, But that was cool.
I think it's almost weirder to have caught it, because then it's like, what the hell is this for?
Yeah. It was a little distracting, but yeah, I watched that. I've been on a deep dive with 80s horror and Italian horror lately on Shudder, but Cursed I would recommend that for anybody who hasn't seen those or doesn't know about some of the weirdness that goes into whether they be coincidence or not. It's still really interesting stuff to find out about some of your favorite horror movies. But
I agree.
So let's get to the movie, man. Let's start talking about November.
Speaking of weirdness.
Okay, so I'm so glad that Josh that you picked this, because I saw it last year, and I wanted everybody to see it. This is one of those things where it's like but I knew most people weren't going to see it. For one, it's black and white. For another, it's a foreign film, and then it's on Shudder. And some people, the foreign films are a deal breaker for some people, and maybe even black and white. But when I saw it, I was like, everybody needs to see this. And so if anybody ever asks me, that I add that, what movies streaming right now should I watch? I added that to the list. And so I'm glad you picked it. And I got a little nervous. I was like, what if he doesn't like it? We're not going to have that. Because Jeremiah, I thought, because we had talked about it for just a couple minutes.
Yeah.
He was just like, dude, that was a weird movie. And I was like, oh, he hates it. So I got a little nervous. I was like, well, maybe he hates it. No, Josh probably hates it. And I'm going to be here praising it myself.
Well, that would have been an interesting dynamic, but no, I didn't hate it.
It would have. But I guess it was part of me was just like, I love it when I turn someone onto some kind of music or movie that's rather obscure, and they're just like, and then they start to turn, they turn it on to other people. So anyway.
Well, and it's cool that you picked this one too. Chad originally had 3 of them and said, hey, these are the 3 I've tossed. And I said, well, let me throw one of those in there. So what's the one you picked? The ones that didn't make it, Chad? You had the Society. Yeah, the Society, which it looks amazing. And then body
horror.
What was the one that I shared, man? The Visitor.
Yeah,
that's just super bizarre. I mean, super strange and weird. But I did that. But I also had one because I threw you another one, and that one didn't make the cut to give to Josh. But when you send this one, he chose to watch this. It worked out perfectly. And the one I proposed was oh man, what was Stalker? What is it? Tchaikovsky? Something like that. Just beautiful cinematography. That's what it's known for. It's another one of these films, much like this one, right? Like November, that is just a spectacle to the eye. That that the imagery you could close your eyes, pull a bird box, put a blindfold on, and tell somebody go ahead and just flip through any place and stop it, and then take a screenshot and do a painting of it and sell that for $1 billion because it's just gorgeous every scene.
I brought Allison in through the course of November. There was a few times where I hit pause just to talk to Allison, and I'd be like, "Oh, come here, look at this." I'd be like, "You gotta see this," and it was just like this gorgeous shot. And then the next time through, like, "Hey, here, look at this." I want to preface talking about it, or just get right in, which is that so Allison is 100% Finnish. And right away, not just because of the sauna, not sauna, that's how she and Finnish people say it, right? The not just because of the sauna, the just the vibe, the feel of it, everything. I'm like, this is like some serious Finnish vibes. Like, where was this movie made? And I went and like researched. I didn't know that Estonia is like literally across a bay from Helsinki, Finland. So yeah, I was like, oh shit. All right, I was right. This is definitely like Finnish. And I go up to the UP. Allison's from the UP. The deep UP, like 2 hours deeper than Marquette. And they have what they call the huvula, which is Finnish for some like lodge of some sort. That's right on a lake, and they have a sauna that's like freestanding, that is literally like on the up against the water, and the dock goes from there. So and countless nights with her Finnish, extremely Finnish, like mother and father, hearing them like speak the language, and like going through the woods like with her dad as he's like taking camp down, and this and that. And there were so many elements of this that reminded me of like her family and the UP, and that I like, when I posted about it, I tagged her whole family in it, like, you guys all got to see this,
Mm-hmm.
And her mom, like directed like plays, like school plays and that kind of thing. And I felt like a lot of elements in November had that vibe to me. And it's one of my favorite things, that it's not necessarily like do it yourself. It's not necessarily lo-fi, although there's a bit of that, but the creatures, what do you call them?
KRATTS. Yeah, the KRATTS. Yeah.
Those made this not lo-fi or something. Like, I was like, wait, this is really well done. Those dudes, that. But like we were like saying before, the ghosts, the dead people, you wear white and you're just painted white, and you have like kind of like dark eyes. Now you're the dead person, and you walk around and you talk. I mean, there's no like, wasn't any like anything especially misty or ghosty about you. You're just painted white. And when when the plague arrived and kissed the guy, and then he's like, oh, now he's dead. And like the devil was like, it's one of my favorite devils I've ever seen in a movie, to be honest with you, truly.
Yeah.
All it was a bearded dude with some like eyeliner, like in the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's something like vaudevillian. There's something like theatrical.
Because of the simplicity. Yeah.
Totally. Do you think all those elements in November didn't come off as do-it-yourself and came off as more theatrical? Do you think it's because of how beautifully it was shot? Like, what do you think? Like, why did it work so well in November? And in other cases, it might have just felt like do-it-yourself, lo-fi, maverick shit. For
me, it was because it was so beautifully shot was one thing, but right off the bat, I think it's in the first like 3.5 minutes where that KRATT breaks down that door and steals the cow.
Yeah.
As soon as that happened, I was like, because I put the movie on, I wasn't sure I was even going to watch it. I just kind of wanted to get a taste of what it was. And as soon as I saw that, I was like 100% in. I had no idea what this weird looking steampunk thing was that like, had no idea. Yeah. But I think that it was, for me, it was the cinematography, it matched by the excellent sound design too. Oh, but yeah, I wrote that down. I have like index cards, and I wrote down like the sound design, man. Yeah. And just I really appreciated the simplicity, because I never thought of it like, but you're right. It looks like a play on screen with beautiful locations because of the simplicity of the ghosts and the devil and pretty much everything. Even the tiny little houses that they have to which I'm not sure why they were so
above their heads.
Yeah, right. I don't know why they're
kind of
so
hunched down.
Maybe it's because they had upstairs.
Yeah, it's like my attic. I have one of those. I have one of those attics where it kind of goes up in the shape of almost a T, right?
Yeah.
And like the pyramid with the top kind of flattened, like on our money, with the eye, the all-seeing panopticon eyeball above it. But that's kind of right, and that's kind of how it is. But how they're all kind of scrunched down in this place. And I agree with you. I think the cinematographer's name is Mart Teniel, and I read a review where they were saying he's a master of charred blacks, incandescent whites, and evocative close-ups. And I liked how they were saying that even the way that the colors were used with the wrinkles on faces and the dirt, right, that was used, or the Josh is saying with the whites and the blacks, that the rich people are a lot of clean white clothes, right? Or the ghosts are bright white, or the devil has like a kind of a white face, but he's got black around his eyes, and he smudges dark stuff on other people's faces, when they come up to him and kind of, smears it on him. And he's kind of the dirty, kind of fuzzy white almost. It's not a bright white. But to use that for an effect that they said even the wrinkles and everything, it gives character and quality and texture to the people. And I think one reason why it does so well is because it's so foreign to most people who see it. And because it's black and white, that it's relying heavily on things like you're saying, the spectacle, for example, that you would see from Greek theater, where people are so far away that you have to have things that stand out prominently that give the viewer an idea immediately that says that's what that character is.
But it never, and with all those elements, it never became like a farce version of that, like a funny, like this is like if like Woody Allen or someone did, like this is like a theater, like it's supposed to be theater. It was cinema the whole time, but had like, what's his name? Michel Gondry, is that his name? Who has like elements of that too, like a sort of like you can almost imagine him and friends like cutting the set out of cardboard or like the like felt, like curtains, whatever. It just had like that theater. Oh, how about when the two chickens go in the sauna?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, clearly a shot of like a smaller sauna. Like,
yeah,
you have giant chickens. It was like instead they put regular chickens and they built a smaller sauna for it. Like those kind of elements, it got away with it. It never came off feeling like tongue in cheek or whatever. Like the mood wasn't by those things. It was only enhanced. Another thing is I was astonished to see the dude from
Human Centipede
in there, and I'm watching him like I know that freaking jawline. I know these cheekbones. Who is this dude? And I'm like, I googled. I was like, oh my god, that's the dude from the Human Centipede. Yeah, the doc.
Yeah, that's his. That was his last movie.
Was that the Baron?
He just died in February. Yeah.
See, man, I when I was watching that and I saw him, I was like, man, there's something about this one character, right? Yeah. This one guy, something familiar about his face and his grin. There's just something about it. And I was like, man, I don't know what I remember him from. And so I'm so glad you brought that. Well, I guess I'm kind of glad you brought that up. I don't know about the mental image you've just given me with Human Centipede. Oh, no.
But he lines in movie history. But
right.
He was almost like a silent movie character in this, which also harkens back to vaudeville. I mean, it really was that. I should have read more about the director, writer. I don't know why I didn't. Oh, by the way, it was based on a book. Did you guys see that?
Yes.
Don't you want to read that now?
But I do want to read it. It's called The Old Barney. Well, it's Rehapop, and it's what is it? Andrus Kivarok is his name, and it's based on. I thought it was interesting as I was looking this stuff up about these creatures that this is actually part of their myth and lore.
Sure.
These are actually, and so much so that in modern debates in Estonia over artificial intelligence and what's the social imaginary for an Estonian about artificial intelligence? It's the KRATTS. And it's actually the KRATTS law is the law pertaining to artificial intelligence for them. And so the way that given their social imaginary, the way that they understand these concepts and abstractions regarding the debate over this, that they fall back on this ancient idea of the KRATTS. And that's how they conceptualize artificial intelligence.
That is awesome. And
it blew my mind. Yeah.
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 That is, I know that Dieter Laser, the Human Centipede guy, I guess he was really pissed at the way the film came out. He said that he felt that the director betrayed and lied about his initial image and how the film was going to be presented, or the original. I can't remember his exact words. It's something I guess he tweeted about.
Really?
He wasn't happy.
Like that? Did you think that he saw it more as a like a regular scary movie or something versus this like art piece or something?
I don't know.
That he was upset about that.
Yeah, he was mad about it. I was another reason why I liked it so much was because, and I had mentioned something to my wife too earlier. There's something about seeing something that you're so unfamiliar with that really refreshing, because even if it's like, I'm assuming that this myth and this thing has been maybe even done to death in that culture, but for us, it's so brand new and refreshing and feels unique and original. And the same goes for something like when The Ring first came out, or The Grudge, that vengeful spirit, the Onryo, the chick with the black. It's based on like their version of basically a ghost in Japan. And when you see the chick with the black hair on her face, it felt new, kind of, because when we have ghosts over here, I mean, we've got many different kinds, but the most popular being kind of like the sheeted, white figure or something like that. And then they've got kind of like this really ominous, legitimately creepy, bendable ghost over there. And so it felt like, I would assume over there, it's just like, yeah, that's just the Onryo. That's just our ghost. Nothing to see here. But for us, when they first made like The Grudge or The Ring, I'm not a big Ring fan, but I did like The Grudge. But when I first saw that, I was like, man, that is really cool looking, man. That is creepy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's one. I know that November is not like a horror movie. In fact, it's hard to call it that, but also then it's easy to call it that as well. But one of the things that I think about, and this is kind of what I was talking about before with books in a different way, is that we're all afraid, like the fear of the unknown, right? And so we don't know, like in a story what the monster is or this or that and that kind of thing. But sometimes that fear of the unknown can extend to, again, who made this? And that happened to me with It Follows. That happened to me with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That happened to me with, what was it? Maybe Human Centipede. But a few through history where it's like, where you're not just freaked out by the movie, you're freaked out by like, you're just not, I don't know if I trust the person that made this. I don't know how far they're going to take this. And I don't know his or her like comfort level or where I'm at with this, that kind of thing, Yeah. Apply that to this. When the ghosts were sitting at the table and they're like, where's the ring? And then the girl's like, oh, and she's like, oh, it's gone. And then she starts saying to Dad, the KRATTS or whatever someone came and stole it. And then she kind of look at each other like, maybe the girl probably took it. That's what their look said. And I don't know the myth of this. I don't know the filmmaker. I don't know the culture at all. And I'm like thinking like, oh, these ghosts are gonna like do something to this girl. You know what I mean? Like they never did. But I don't know. And the rhythm of it is different. And you're not familiar. Like if you're not familiar with like the rhythm of a scary movie that you're watching, that's like, that could freak you out.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm so drawn to like darker drama type of stuff. Like Lynch will do that to you too. He's not this isn't a horror movie, but when you're watching something like Blue Velvet or something, horrific things happen, and you like you're saying, you like kind of don't trust him, right? Because that he might freak me out. I don't know him that well.
Yeah,
this isn't really something I'm used to. There's no, this is outside the template that I'm maybe used to seeing or something. And I love that. And I was just talking to someone recently that when you take something I can't offhand think of a scene, but if you take something like a dark or scary scene and you put it and drop it in the middle of a drama, be it literature or a film, it hits so much harder than it would in a horror film, because you're expecting it.
Yeah.
And you're already kind of desensitized to it by even starting the movie or starting the book. But you drop that in the middle of something else and it hits so much harder. Like, I don't know if Hereditary would be a good example, because Hereditary is a horror movie, but half of it is such a heavy duty family drama, like absolutely traumatic, with legitimate reactions that you would expect from, it's not the best example, but it kind of goes hand in hand with just not knowing what to expect.
Oh, Hereditary example though. You know what? Like, okay, The Witch and Hereditary both did this, where they used like early on what I would consider to be the scariest beat of the movie. And these were both their first movies, right? Mm-hmm. So the one in the witch is the peekaboo game with the baby, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's even in the preview, that one, but still, you're like this game and like, oh, and then she looks and the baby's gone, right? And then looks up at the warden who took the baby. And I don't know who made this movie. I'm like, if this is beat one, like,
yeah, right.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if I can handle this. And in Hereditary, it was, oh my God. I saw this alone. I mean, there were other people in the theater, but I was on my own. And that beat where when she turns the light off in the art space and mom who just died is standing by the shelves. Mm-hmm. Remember that early on?
Yeah.
Super early on. And she turns off the light and then she's standing there and she's like, just the outline of grandma like over there. And I, honest to God, I was like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. I got. And then I honestly started saying to myself, dude, you are a horror author. Do not leave this. Come on. Like, if you walk out of this, like, come on, dude, you gotta watch this movie. And like, it never got scared. Neither movie to me, I ever got scarier than those moments. But what happened was, it was like, God, it was brilliant to put that up front. Because it's like, I can do that to you. You don't know me yet. This is my first movie. I can scare you. Mm-hmm. So for the rest of the movie, I'm on edge.
So yeah, you're scared the whole time now.
All the time. Even if nothing lives up to that first moment.
I thought something cool about this film, when I was investigating it, I was finding that a lot of this stuff in the film was in fact true to form for their culture and like for the beliefs about it. And the idea that this is formed from hay or from old household implements. It was Glenn Kelly over at RogerEbert.com was talking about it and saying that there's that they need to keep working the whole time or they can go crazy. And that the idea is if it ever becomes useless, where it's like, well, it's no longer of any use to me. And if you've tricked the devil, and there's a reason for this, and I won't give it away because it'll maybe give away some of the ending. But if it becomes useless, there's a way to dispose of them. And it was to give it an impossible job. And so there's the scene where it says, hey, make the ladder out of this piece of bread. And that it's looking back and forth. And my wife, she laughed. Which is kind of a funny thing. She's watching this and she just thought that was so funny, this scene where the KRATTS looking at this ladder, looking at the bread, looking at the ladder, looking at the bread. Yeah. And then it explodes. And the whole idea is that when it dies like that, it catches on fire and it burns away like a fireball. And so even in the film, like if you didn't know anything about the KRATT and you watched it, you'd be like, man, this is a crazy thing. That's actually part of the description of this. And I thought one thing that was interesting, and I didn't see it in any commentary on it, in any review. And I would love to talk to the guy who put this together. Okay. Sarnett, right, is his last name. And the thing is that there's the scene where the main girl, Lena, right? She goes and she's nude and she grabs this kind of salve from a tree and she's rubbing it all over her skin, even her face and stuff. And the closest thing I ever saw when everybody mentioned it, and it may have been at the Ebert site, but it was that it was butter. It was in a parenthetical. It said butter ? And I was thinking the fungus from rye. Because bread plays a major role throughout the entire film. And Ergot, if I'm pronouncing it properly, is one of the theoretical origins for werewolves, right? And there's websites I went to where they were like, this is a controversial theory. And I'm like, it's kind of a funny thing. Like, it's really controversial. They think it came from this. But the idea that people who were poor, the peasants, they wouldn't get the first fruits of the land. And so the problem is that the longer that rye was there, it would get bad. And the idea was that they would make this food and they'd get this poisoning, ergot poisoning, and that there's a chemical in there it's a hallucinogenic. And so you kind of trip nuts, right, from eating this. And there was a while where people thought that was involved maybe with the Salem witch trials. And a lot of people say that doesn't make sense of it. But at least it's one of those explanations out there is that the ergot, but the idea that she's rubbing this on. She looks up, there's a moon, right? She's a shapeshifter, basically, turns into this werewolf. So it's connected. And I was like, but I didn't read anybody else say anything about it. I'm like, isn't it ergot? Isn't that what that is? And so I would love to talk to somebody and ask.
No question, that's what it is now to me.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys catch the you probably did because Josh kind of alluded to earlier, but when the plague came, that it came in the form of like it asked to be carried there.
Yeah.
And then the guy went and got it, and as though he's the one who carried the plague to the village.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. And yeah, everybody else felt like a real, like they played, different roles, real people or whatever, but the plague was a person too. I thought that was really interesting. And then one thing in the movie I didn't quite understand is once the plague like turned into that pig, soon after that, and I'm assuming they killed the pig. The guy stuck it with the scythe or whatever, I think. But soon after that, there was a scene where the guy that was supposed to be was supposed to be kind of like the groom in the arranged marriage or whatever, big old nasty guy.
Yeah.
And he was going to rape that woman. Well, when he was trying to do that, he sounded just like the pig.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what that really meant.
Everyone had to be deliberate, right?
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and she refers to him as a pig. She says she calls him a pig earlier, and is assuming that when he's talking about the marriage, he's informing her basically, "Hey, look, your dad's hooking me up with you." She's acting as though she's confused by the whole thing and says, "Oh yeah, well, he's like the pig is almost ready. We need to just slit its throat." And she's like, "But then how will you marry?" And he's like, "What? I'm so confused." And she goes, "Well, a pig for a pig." Kind of thing. And so, yeah, he's a pig, and he, in a way, he kind of personifies it later to the point where he's even making the sound.
Yeah, how about that? Yeah.
Yeah.
some of that stuff, the brighter areas were shot in, you could tell it was shot in infrared, like toward the end. And I think there's a couple scenes, but particularly toward the end where all of the trees and everything look real bright white. But if you look at the people's eyes, they're darker. I don't know if you've ever looked at anybody who's been filmed using like night vision and how their eyes get really dark. Well, infrared is the same way when they use that kind of film. And I could tell right away that they were using infrared. But then when you saw the people's eyes, particularly that woman that when they found all that gold, she was crazy, man. She's hilarious. Man,
well, I was going to ask something about like the cast, like, at some point, you got you're like, are these? At first, you're kind of like, these are theater actors, and then you think, well, what's going on here? Actually, are these just like locals in the
locals?
Right.
Like those were like as authentic looking village.
Yeah.
Life.
Yeah.
They were for sure. I think the woman who stole the dress. I think she had false teeth in.
Yeah,
but she was probably actress. But a couple of those other people, man.
I just want to point out, because just for the record, the idea of the KRATT, like how you defeat it or how you get rid of it, is to give it an impossible job is a freaking awesome story prompt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's point that for a second to like a guy who has like a demon or something, an entity like on his case or something. And maybe either working for him or against him, either way. But to give the thing an impossible job is like an entire novel is in there.
Yeah,
I absolutely love that idea. Like to try to shake this, and then I don't know, but I just wanted to mark that moment because like if in 2 years from now, you guys are like, oh, Malerman has a new book called Impossible Job.
Yeah, we know where it came from, man. Birth right here.
It's copyrighted right now. I also found it. I also found like what I felt was almost like a hint of American culture in there, and I'm sure it wasn't. Maybe it's just because I don't know the origin. But did you guys notice that when they went to go meet the devil to like basically sell their soul, that it was at a crossroads?
Yeah.
Like Robert Johnson.
Yeah, like full on. Is that an American thing? Is that?
It's not be because I've only ever heard about it like the Robert Johnson story and things like that. But yeah, they clearly use the same thing in there.
This would be a moment for me to look in that book of symbols I mentioned last week, Chad. I have like this 800-page book with all these different symbols, you know, even shapeshifters, man, that was in there. I should have been, I don't know why I didn't look at it now that I'm coming to think about it. But yeah, crossroads, you know, that there's the imagery of that, and that you have to go to the center, and they whistled, right? And then all of a sudden Devil just boom shows up, and he's this vibrant kind of figure, kind of almost jolly, but in an evil way. Right? You know, yeah.
Also, it's cool too, the idea. I mean, it's almost impossible for me to watch things without trying to assimilate or whatever, right? As a fellow creator, but the idea that typically with the crossroads, you imagine like two like country roads or whatever, you know, with like fields of corn or whatever, like in these two roads. But to have it was almost like two like sawdust paths in the woods is what it more looked like, or snow, whatever. But it's so like unassuming, just like in the woods. Like what, like the crossroads doesn't have to be. You know, the crossroads could be anywhere. Right. Yeah. And there's something like cool about that, and kind of like chilling about that too. Love the whistling thing for him too. And now, is that all? I mean, is that all part of like the myth of the devil? That, you know, is that how it normally we go to the crossroads and whistle, or is that like, because this is interesting, because we watched like a folk horror, a folk fantasy, dark fantasy, whatever movie, right? And you know, like the guy from the Witch is following like folklore to a T, and then with Midsommar, Ari Aster, he's also like everything involved is actual, like, you know, they're not inventing their own myths, right? They're taking, you know, and they're starting to make like little, I mean, big actually, whatever, careers out of like real folklore and these movies. So, do you think that this movie was, I don't want to say jumping on that wagon, who cares about that, but do you think that there is some sense that if you're going to do a folk horror or a folk story like that, that you're supposed to live by the rules of it?
I'd be interested, because I wrote down, there's you know, I was trying to find, you know, what's the backstory to all this? I mean, you know, we have our Grimms, right? We have our, what is it, Hans Christian Andersen, right? Yeah. So we have these, but then you've got over there, Kreutzwald. I don't know if they would pronounce it with a W or a V, right? I don't want to be assuming, but old Estonian fairy tales, published in 1866, has 43 fairy tales and 18 legends in it. And then you've got one from 1947 called The Nightingale and the Blind Worm. You've got, you know, ones by a guy by the name of Juri, Juri, in 1933. And it really talks about, like, emphasizes the Estonian ethical principles of their stories. And so, but they have all these different stories where it talks about even stuff like elves and goblins and incubi and malaria and the plague. And so they have this whole canon of literature, and it would be interesting to see, you know, how accurate that is, or if they took license with it and in a way are making their own modern myth.
You know, I might be able to actually find a little bit out, because I just found out today that my publisher who released the Russian version of Foster Homes and Flies is from Estonia. I didn't know that until today.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's cool. That would be amazing. That would be amazing to talk from there about this movie, because like they might be like, oh yeah, that's like the regular myth or something. That's like the book. And then but it was also fresh, you know. But because I wonder though about those, like that almost subconscious authenticity to these sort of things, like The Witch and Midsommar and here, the sense, like you said, like the gathering the implements from the home to create the krat or whatever, like that's like one of those little details that, you know, rather than going out and getting the sticks from the woods, you take the implements from the home. That's just one of those just little small subconscious authenticity details that you're like, yeah, that I believe this or something. And that's a hard thing to invent, right? That's a hard thing to create on your own. So I do wonder, and I know that dude, what is his name? The Witch director.
David, I can't remember his name either.
Is it Eggers? Maybe it's Eggers. But but he's doing like a Viking movie now or whatever, and I have no doubt that he's going to follow all the rules of that era. Mm-hmm. And that's something that is like, when I'm writing a book, I don't care about it all. I'm not thinking like, you know, like with Unburied Carol. It's like just a total, like at some point I'm like, well, I guess it's a weird Western because I'm just not following the rules of like 18, whatever. I'm just like, let's roll, right?
Yeah.
I've always been interested in the kind of artists that do. And I wonder if the reason is, I don't think it's a lack of creativity. I wonder if it's trying to create that sort of that blanket authenticity so that you buy this. It's almost like subliminal. You buy everything and we're telling the story on top of it.
It's funny. And yeah, it's Eggers. You mentioned the idea of Vikings, right? And I can say this because I'm a bona fide weirdo who really loves going to like medieval festivals and stuff. And our daughter was the indefinite princess of all time for a specific one, Black Rock, here in Michigan. And there were these Viking enthusiasts that were there. In fact, there was a historical, they live it out. So you go there and you've got people who are acting their live action role play for the weekend where they are living as the Vikings. And what was hilarious about it was I wondered, I said, well, where's like the furs and the horns and stuff? And they were like, that's not real. Like that is a modern concept of this. And it's probably more for the spectacle of it. That if you're just dressed in linens and colorful clothes, that they might say, well, what's that? Like you wouldn't think, oh, Vikings. And yet that's exactly what they were.
I'll bet you the way you're describing it will be what that movie's like. You know what was a bizarre, like unexpected touching moment in this movie? Was when the witch, I don't even know, at some point it seemed like she wasn't, but when she said that I was waiting for a boy to climb up into the hayloft.
Yeah.
And the girl was like, did he? And then she just shakes her head, no.
And
I was like, oh. I mean, I felt like a lifetime of sadness in that one little exchange. Did he? And I was like, oh. I just like punched me right in the gut, dude. It was a totally unexpected emotional beat in that movie.
Did you guys catch that she killed that guy's wife?
Yeah, and then he was like,
subtle.
He was like, I don't really blame you. That what's in the past is the past. And I was like, there was this weird little side of me that was like, at that age, I could almost understand that. Like, if I'm 80 or 90 or whatever, I could almost be like, dude, life is so fucking insane. It doesn't even matter what's happened before this moment, and then in all the swirling dervishes of existence that's brought us to this moment. That's what he seemed like to me. And then he even put his hand on hers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I watched it for the second time yesterday, and I enjoyed it a lot more because I was a little bit more familiar with, because I remember the first time I saw it and All Souls Day was happening, and you've got this essentially like a white parade coming down the middle of and I'm like, what's going on here? And it took a little bit, and I was like, wait, are those supposed to be ghosts?
Yes.
There was certain things that just kind of like took me whereas this time I could appreciate everything that was going on because I knew ahead of time. And so I could like kind of focus more on other stuff. And yeah, for me, it was just I don't think it's a horror movie at all. I think it's
it's just not,
tragic love story in the setting of a dark fairy tale folklore. Yeah.
But
great love story, man. It was very Romeo and Juliet.
Tragic. Tragic elements. Yeah.
I did get some like Mario Bava from it though.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, and there's that one shot that especially felt like Night of the Demon when it was like that straight down like the wood. I'm trying to do it with the camera. Straight down like the woods go like that, and then the mist's coming. I think that's actually come out of there. Yeah, that is what it was. And that's like in the in the Night of the Demon. That's when the demon starts coming through or whatever. But I got some like Mario Bava like feel to it. But I guess what's it called? Black Sunday would be like the black and white one of his that like totally badass, with the mask nailed into her face, all that.
Right.
I had some like that vibe with the that Planet of the Vampires, and he always had, to me, his I know that he was also known for so much color, so it's kind of a strange example.
Yeah.
But Black Sunday was black and white, and it's like there was a sense of like, it's okay if we're on a theatrical set. It's okay that fog is supposed to be scary, and here's a bunch of fog. You know what I mean? It's like like Vincent Price has that element to him too, or something, where it's like, I'm going to talk like, this is how scary people talk, and it still works. And then this whole movie kept having that for me, where like, this is how you look at someone that you love, but it worked. And this is like a ghost, but it worked. Like it never felt cliche to me, this movie. Like you said, if I talk to an Estonian, they might think that it was. I don't know.
Yeah,
and that's why we got to talk to your guy there, Chad. We got to connect with your contact man.
Yeah, I'll ask her. I don't know if she's seen the movie. I don't know the relationship. I'm not great with all geography, so I don't know the relationship. She's Russian, but she's from Estonia, so I don't know like quite the relationship there. And now she lives in Ireland now, but
in Ireland,
yeah.
I want to go to every place we're mentioning right now, man.
Yeah.
I had invited to go to Bulgaria for the books, and Allison and I weren't able to go, and it's like it haunts me right now. And I'm sure you guys feel the same way, that more than ever, like right now, I want to go see the whole world. Like right now, like if there was an airplane in our driveway that was like, you can see the whole world right now for like 3 months, I'd be like, let's fucking go right now.
Oh man, I think most of us would settle just for going down the road.
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Like go to a fucking concert. Right?
Yeah, at this point, right?
Yeah.
At this point, just to get outside and be like, I'm driving, everybody. Yeah.
Sorry, that was my
Dude, that's hilarious.
Sorry.
That's David Lee Roth?
Huh?
Well,
Yeah, it was. That's my ringtone.
Yeah.
How do you guys typically do ratings? Like, do you do out of 10 or something?
5.
Out of 5?
Yeah.
And no halves are allowed?
You can do half, yeah.
Didn't I do a 4? Didn't I originally, wasn't it like a 4.8? Didn't I get down to the decimal for Wild at Heart? Like I said, it wasn't.
I think you did.
Tough one. Because like for example, like I absolutely would want Allison to see this beyond just the Finnish vibes and ties. Allison also does special effects, and she did like set design on a really bizarre movie that we made years ago. And I just like, whatever. She's an artist, a painter, a musician. Can we bring that up real fast? The one thing that I felt was like kind of like missing was like an awesome soundtrack. Did you guys have any sense of like that's different? I know you know this. That's different than the sound design, which we both agreed was awesome.
Yeah.
I just felt like the music was kind of like it was here, it was there, but like it didn't like drive us somewhere.
I liked it. I didn't feel like it was anything missing, but I see what you're saying. I mean, Jeremiah, he had mentioned something earlier. There was some guitar, distorted guitar in some of the more intense moments.
It was a Polish composer, Jacek. I don't know, Jacaszek. And being in Grand Rapids, there's a lot of Polish people. I go to a Catholic church that's predominantly Polish, and trying to pronounce some of that is yeah, right. Good luck. But the right here it says the scores were mixes of these kind of droning sounds and burbles and lupine howls with occasional bursts of electric guitar. And I thought that was the interesting thing, is that there weren't a bunch of modern instruments in it, except for the occasional burst of this electric guitar. So yeah, but I agree with you on that it seemed that it wasn't, if anything else, it wasn't the driving force that was moving it. And it didn't have this way of working like a Kubrick style thing with 2001 or whatever, where the music matches with the scene and the mood, and that it drives it. That's the music is kind of what's driving it.
Sure.
You don't have that. And it doesn't seem like there was even you're seeing in a lot of films now where it's timed, where let's say a song is beginning at a certain spot and then 2.5 minutes go by and then the song finishes at the end, that if you actually played that song, it would be uninterrupted. It would be the exact length. So they figured out how to match that so that it flows according even to the tempo and the rhythm and the beat and measure count of the song. Whereas this didn't have that. No, because it was all ambient kind of.
Do you think that is like a sign that this movie was aware that its cinematography was its centerpiece?
Yeah.
And do you think that maybe even to a fault, where they were like, oh, that music's fun. Look at how gorgeous it looks, as they're working. Because it really, it was gorgeous. So you can imagine if you're the director and the writer and you're just like, oh my God, it looks so good. And then this shot is good. And this, do you think the music was, I don't want to say an oversight because it was good, whatever. But do you think that their focus was obviously on that cinematography?
I like that you said to a fault, because I think that it's fine, but it's to a fault because, it wouldn't have taken away from that. I can't imagine if they would have done a little bit better with that it would have actually taken away from the spectacle of it, the mesmerizing, bewitching spectacle of the whole thing.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. I think it would be, Nietzsche would seem to indicate that it would heighten it. You know. Yeah.
Maybe that's what Dieter Laser didn't like about it.
I think that I was so seduced by it visually that I maybe that's why I didn't even for me I can't think of a black and white does do something to a movie or even a photograph, and maybe that's why we always shoot our author bio photos in black and white, or maybe that's just supposed to be spooky, I don't know. But there's something about black and white photography film that does take something to a different level, whether it be artistically or just set a different mood. But this particular movie, I don't recall ever seeing something so, it was just hyper whatever it was. It was just very, very...
But okay, Chad, did you see Beyond the Black Rainbow? You see that movie? Did either of you guys see that one?
No, but I listen to the soundtrack all the time when I'm writing.
It's amazing, right? But there was something, and this is a whole other issue, and I'm sure like a viewer's like, screw you, I love that movie. But like, it's like, it was too much to me. It was too much of that thing. It was like, it loved Kubrick, and then it was like so focused on that panoramic shot and all the sort of Kubrick fixins, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then like this one never felt that way to me. It never felt like it was resting on its laurels or something.
Okay, I was gonna,
gorgeous.
Yeah.
I wonder if I don't know. I do wonder if at some point they were like, it's gorgeous, and then we got it, but then it was like one more notch higher, just one more freaking notch higher with some more music or some more something, and this could have just exploded or something.
Maybe it could, man. I know it makes me think of Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. There's a avant-garde jazz version of that. I don't know. It's the only version I've seen, but the music is so awesome and so fitting, but it's not the original music.
Right.
And it makes the movie so awesome.
Maybe we could score November. We play live for November. That would actually work. It really would, because if you think about it, it's all subtitled and it's so visually arresting. If you had written your own soundtrack or your band played live to November, that would be kind of awesome, actually.
It would.
Yeah,
I think
it would.
I think with the rating, I like what Variety said about it. They said it's a folktale too odd to begin with Once Upon a Time, and it's far too peculiar to end with Happily Ever After. Mm-hmm. And I would say that it rightfully won the prizes, right, that have to do with cinematography.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed watching it. Mm-hmm. The more that I read about it, the more that I enjoyed it and anticipate watching it again and encouraging other people to watch it. We're doing it now. I'm going to encourage them right now. People should watch this, right? It's worth your time to do it. And I'd give it a 4. I'd say that it was, especially because I'm artsy. There might be people who aren't as into art things. It's more of a 3 for me, or they wanted more of the drive of the music. And I that's why I would give it a 4 specifically, because I can deal with the weirdness. I can deal with the oddity. I mean, we were talking earlier about Lynch. I'm watching some crazy junk right now, so I can deal with that. But if they had that music like Josh was talking about, I think if it had that, I'd give it a 5. But I'll give it a 4, and say that it's worth watching.
What about you, Josh?
I'm gonna say completely worth watching, and I'm also more than artsy enough to I want to see more movies like this. I'm also really just sort of naturally into the folk horror you know, or I keep saying horror, but this movie's not a horror movie, everyone. It just, you know, it's in the waiting room, maybe of like, you know, a long hallway away. So it has all those elements, but it just, something was a little shy of like it being like, oh, like that I got the chills kind of thing. I would give it about a 3.8.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I would probably a 4.5, because to me it was just I'm always looking for originality in everything, and I have a hard time with things that are cliche or predictable, and this was none of that, and it just did so many things differently. And then again, visually, man, I just, you know, something about it. I was smitten. I was smitten by the visuals. They probably could have dialed the rest in for me, and I would still loved it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I love it. And sometimes I like a movie, like I'll give something a 5 stars, and I can tell it's a movie that I can't just tell anybody to go see. They have to be, you know, I feel like this is, if somebody has the patience to, because not everybody wants to sit down and watch a black and white or a foreign film. But if they are, I would definitely recommend it, or just say, you know, do it anyway, you know, challenge yourself to do that, because it will pay off.
I think that there's something like, as an artist, there's like something that, like I wrote in that post, you're gonna have like 13 story prompts like halfway through this movie, and then you have a discussion about the impossible job, and like this, it's just, there's something about this one that every time you freeze it, you could be like, oh, this could be a scene of like, you know, you could have your own love story,
right?
And there was like, as like a creative, this was a great movie to watch in that way, and it no doubt what you're saying is that it's because it's fresh and original. And that also has that theatrical thing. A lot of things worked about this movie that maybe wouldn't have worked in different hands. So I need to read more about the director for that reason and see what else. I think it's a he, right? It's
Yeah.
See what else done, and because like that, like one thing I wanted to say is that because you know, sometimes I'm starting to have some say in like you know, who might we cast in like this or that. You know, there's like, I have like a number of books that are either optioned or whatever right now. There was an actor in this movie that I would love to have in a movie, and it was the dude that had the like suitcase of underpants.
Yeah.
That dude,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
That guy was great. He was also, remember the weird like ship high moment?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that. Like, by the way, we just talked for like however long it was about that movie and never even mentioned that.
Yeah. There was actually some several funny scenes in there. There was one line in there where I can't remember who said it. One of the women said, they were talking about the Latvians, whoever those are. It said the Latvians have an ass for a mouth and only shit comes out of it.
Yeah.
Real people from Latvia. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like a shot across the bow, right? I mean, for real.
The way that those older people talked was, I mean, they were brutal with their words. They were so funny when they talked.
What about the weird idea that you could trick the plague by pretending you had 2 asses?
Yeah.
Yes. I loved that. That kind of stuff is what I'm talking about, man.
Joe comes in, he's like, nope, no people here, and leaves.
It's like, like who came up with that?
Yeah,
is that real? Because if not, man,
I'm gonna guess it's real.
Yeah. I guess I'm surprised we haven't heard anything like that with how to deal with the old coronavirus. You know, we've seen people say, well, you just drink a lot of water. Like, I've gotten the memes sent to me, and I don't want to name anybody, you know, I mean, I love them, but I've had people send me memes where they're like, you know, it's got the thing and it shows a guy drinking water and it's got the little virus shapes and stuff in the throat. And it says, if you drink 18 ounces of water every day, the virus will go into your stomach and die. And I'm thinking, I'm waiting for a meme that talks about the idea of, well, if you put pants on your head and pants on your bottom, then the virus will think that you're not a human and will just go right past you, you know? So I'm waiting for that, man.
Like the 3 of us We're laughing now, but in like 2 weeks we have our pants on our head.
Yeah.
It's coming, guys. It's coming.
We're desperate. So Jeremiah, is there any moral that you that you walked away from after watching this movie?
Yes, dude. Yes. You know, if I was a young guy, and definitely trying to woo a beautiful maiden, the last thing I would do would be to trust this very single old hag witchy lady talking about putting poop and armpit hair and sweat into some bread and then making it and giving it to her myself and insisting, oh no, it's chocolate. That would be like maybe the worst idea. And I definitely would not do that. So that would be the moral lesson I've taken from this movie, is do not make the poop, armpit hair, sweat bread loaf for the girl you're trying to woo.
You stole mine.
I did, dude. Well, it's hilarious, and that's so funny that Josh, he brings up, he's like, we went this whole time and we weren't even talking about the Duke.
I specifically didn't talk about it.
No, it's hilarious. That's perfect.
Yeah, because both of you were kind of like quiet when I said that, and I'm like,
yeah,
that was weird, right, guys? I was like, why?
You're like, how funny would that have been if we would have both been like, Josh, I must have missed that scene. What are you talking about? I had no idea there was a poop loaf. What did you see, Josh?
The guy I love, he goes, it's shit.
Yeah.
I specifically didn't bring that. I mean, I wrote notes on that scene because it was hilarious. I mean, the dude eats his own feces, gets possessed, beats a couple dudes up, and hurries up and rapes some chick from eating his own,
crazy strangle cam.
Yeah.
It was great. Now mine just climbed to a 3.9. I forgot about the strangle cam.
Yeah, strangle cam.
Or like screaming and like through the house. Yeah, there was a lot of original shit in this movie, wasn't there? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great. Okay. Man, I don't want to. I can talk movies, music all day long. I don't want to keep Josh anymore, but
it's been fun though.
Yes.
It's been amazing. I've been thinking sorry to cut you off, Chad.
Go ahead.
Talking that I would love to do this again with one, because now that I have like a sense, I just feel like with like the research that you did into it, and then I would like to do this again with like not like the most popular like The Exorcist, but maybe something more like The Omen or something that like they're, I don't know, it's something that I would be really prepared for or something. I feel totally fine with this was all wonderful, but it would be really fun to go like bonkers over something,
This was all part of our plan, Josh.
Yeah.
It was all part of a master plan. We were like, how are we going to get him to like want to come back? In fact, and then we're like, we got to pick a movie that he's not as prepared for, and that way he'll want to come back.
I really wouldn't be surprised, and you can leave this in there or not. I really would not be surprised if this show starts doing really well for you guys. I feel like you guys are really, really good at this, and it's like engaging and it's cool, and you're similar takes and personalities, but kind of coming from different angles and different insights, and it's like it's really good what you guys are doing. I just wanted to make sure I said that before this was over. It's I don't really like the word impressed because it sounds like who am I to be impressed, but I am. I'm really impressed with what you guys are doing. It's great.
It means a lot, man. Yeah,
it does.
Yeah,
and dude, I mean, we've been what 2.5, almost 3 hours, man, hanging out. So I really appreciate your time.
Yeah,
big time.
I didn't. That is fucking nuts. Okay.
What are ways that people can keep following your work, man? Ways that people can get in touch with you and things like that.
Well, it's really just Josh Malerman on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And I hadn't used the website really much at all in years. And then about a month ago, right when I was sitting down to write a novel, and my webmaster asked me if I wanted to put there's a free short story up there, and he asked me if I wanted to put a new one up there, and I was like, well, yeah, I do want to, but I don't have one, and I also don't feel like writing one because I'm about to write this novel. And then it was like, well, what if we serialize the novel on there? Like, we'll put a few chapters a week. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. So suddenly joshmalerman.com has become a big thing in my life where I'm writing a book, giving it kind of a once over, and then posting the chapter. It's as close. I think it's as close as you can get to writing a book live without literally doing it in front of someone, and that sounds like complete madness. So joshmalerman.com actually has a serialized novel that's 50,000 words deep already. I mean, and there's a soundtrack, brilliant soundtrack that this guy from Atlanta, Chris Campbell, has been doing. He's at like 53 minutes. There's poems. Shane Douglas Keene has been doing chapter by chapter. So the website has actually become really exciting right now. But otherwise, it's just my name, one Al, Malerman, Josh Malerman, on Twitter, Facebook, and all the other stuff.
Well, It's been a real pleasure, man.
Make sure July 21st to pick up Mallory. Sequel to Bird Box. I'm sure it's going to be great. I've seen arcs going around. I get jealous every time I see one, but when it comes out, I'm grabbing a copy.
I can send you the PDF tonight if you're into that stuff.
Will it be small print on the?
I don't know. Yeah, I think it would. Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah, no, I can't do that either.
I just tried that. Somebody sent me an arc recently, and I struggled on my Kindle to read it, and I won't read it on my computer, man. I can't stand reading it on my computer. So
thank everybody for joining us. Yeah, we definitely love it. We are glad you've joined us, and we appreciate the fact that Josh was here. Of course, make sure to go and find us at PaleoCheeze. That's PaleoCheeze. And you can find us at PaleoCheeze on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, and on YouTube as well. And so make sure to go on and do all that. And you can email us. Email us at paleocheeze@gmail.com.
It's Bazong, the weird and wacky fiction podcast. With me, your host, Mr. Frank. Every Monday, we're talking to everyone who's anyone writing weird and wacky fiction. So if you enjoy reading funny and strange books, or you enjoy writing funny and strange books, join us on Bazong each week to learn along with Mr. Frank. Bazong every Monday, a part of the Project Entertainment Network.